Oh.
All the meetings.
Oh, wow.
Just for my own protection.
Okay. Okay.
And I did that at one meeting that was not a public meeting.
Mm.
And I said I can broadcast this, and everybody went nuts.
Wow.
They're like, I didn't know. It's like, you're
Yeah,
kind of in public,
meetings,
you
yeah.
know. So nobody really said anything. So I still record them all, and then, yeah, for my protection.
Yeah.
I only share certain ones.
Not a bad idea.
Right on the money. Tina's back. Yay. All right. Those that wish, rise for the pledge. I'll ask Bill to lead us off. I pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, everyone. Welcome to March. Happy St. Patrick's Day for those of you that are Irish or have a little bit or think you are. And if you are going out tonight partying, you can get a voucher from the state of Delaware on some safe driver thing where you can get a $20 Lyft or Uber voucher. So if you decide you want to go out and tie one on, they'll help you get home safe. While they last, of course.
Well, actually, they give us
You'll probably
0.0,
be doing
it's
that,
not
but,
too bad.
I know a few that might.
It's multi.
All right, approval of the minutes. I'm gonna have a chance to.
Give him the sheet.
I think they came out a while ago. I'm sorry. I was remiss. I thought I was on the second week. I was, Anything? Where were you? You had some fruit. I tell you what, everyone's good. All right, land use report looks good, treasury report looks good. Thank you, Trish, as acting secretary. We'll keep you on the payroll for another year, just in case. Any questions on land use, on the minutes? Seeing none, motion to approve. Pete?
I just have a quick comment on the marker for 853 Valley Road. That's the historic building where the barn is, and there's the spigot where the black students had stopped to get water on their way to 107C. That marker is not a historic road marker like the other ones. It's not a state historic marker. It's one that the developer is supposed to be putting in as an informational sign. So it doesn't. It just says marker there, but the developer has agreed to put some kind of wording there to commemorate and mark that. So
Not the Beulah mark.
no, not
The
Beulah.
marker for 853 has an issue with size and location.
Right. That marker. It's not a big historic roadside marker. It's more an informational sign that the developer is supposed to put in.
All right. So how do you want to word that then?
I mean, it says marker, but it's informational sign.
Okay, so we'll replace the word marker with an informational sign. Okay. Anything else? Seeing none, as amended, anyone want to make a motion to accept? Anybody? Thank you. Anyone want a second? Anyone want to discuss? Be quiet. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, take your own notes. Okay, thank you all. And that works out well. Let's do the treasurer's report, because that's where the fun is. See how many
How much
pennies we
fun
got.
is there?
Yeah, how many pennies did we get this month?
So as of the end of February, it's hard to figure out, $3,612.25. And that takes into consideration website expense of $22.17. And spoiler alert for the March report, I have one $25 dues payment that I received tonight.
Any questions on the financial?
Yes,
Yes, Trish.
last month, I questioned why there was so little dues paid. And anybody who paid dues in June, when the dues are due, was not credited for this year's dues. They were put into the prior year.
Okay,
And I sent information to you
Yep.
from our bylaws that our particular year runs from June to June.
from
It
June
does
to May
not-
31st.
It does not run from July, from the 1st of July to the end of June. And so if you're going to account for that, then half the dues that were paid for this year are not going, are credited for somebody else, some other year.
Did they pay in 24 maybe? Because typically you would credit dues that weren't paid for the prior year.
Well, I paid my dues in June, but my dues don't show up in this year.
Okay. All right, Joe, we'll look into that and let us know next time.
I complained to Joe last time and he informed me that our fiscal year is July the 1st.
All right, well, I will look into all that and confirm that and report on it next month. Sound
Yeah.
good?
All right, dues are gonna go up $100 from now on. And by the way, I'd like to propose at our next annual meeting, we change it to annual dues for the year, so you don't have to worry about this, because we have our fiscal year ends, we have our elections in May, they're all scattered, we have 3 different dates, and it's not that complicated.
Yes, but our terms start
Correct.
June the 1st.
The term starts June 1, goes to May 31st, that's for the election. But our fiscal year can be changed to a calendar year if we wish. We can change that at any time with a simple board vote. But as far as the dues, it'd be nice, like I think HBA did this, you just made them for the year. You don't have them prorated or anything like that, it's the year and that's what it is. So we're gonna bring that up, I think, because it just makes it easier. It's kind of difficult to split them when we don't know. But just an FYI, but thank you. All right, any other questions on the treasurer's report? Anyone want to make a motion to accept? All right, second? All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, thank you. I see we have Senator Sokola here. I saw him sneaking in. Nice to see you, Dave. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you. So the good news is, everybody else, well, Laura hasn't been showing up lately. Janet is off on vacation in Missouri. So she's away, and Mike Smith texted me that he has laryngitis and is feeling under the weather. So nothing worse than a politician that can't talk in front of a room of people. So thankfully we have Mr. Sokola here, Senator David Sokola. David, you have the floor.
Oh, well, thank you. Good, because I'll try not to be very long. I do have other things I could be doing, but I did get this this afternoon. I don't always get it until the day.
Yeah, that's my fault
That's okay.
today. I was very late getting it to Tom, and Tom sent it out. So it's on me for being late again this month.
So I can tell you a little bit about what Janet would be saying. She'd be talking about how the governor or the county executive signed the extension for the appeals process for your property reassessment. And then it goes through, I guess, the end of the month. And there's a lot of information that's available on the county website if you're interested in that information. They also are partnering with the Board of Realtors, which is a good group. They know what property values are, and they're trying to make sure that this is a process that is fair. One thing that Janet and I and others have heard, and it's not really my part, but it is state law that says the counties need to reassess periodically and doesn't define what periodically is. Until recently, when we passed a law that says every 5 years you gotta roll it, which is, it's 3 to 5 years almost everywhere else nationally in the country. And it was 43, 46, and 50 years in the state of Delaware, which is a little bit embarrassing. But they're going to be helpful. The Board of Realtors, I think, are going to offer some assets to help with the process. One of the things that is not usually part of an issue is whether somebody has a redone kitchen or a redone bathroom, because as you roll reassessments, it rolls which houses have redone their kitchen or redone their bathroom. If you add a sunroom, or if you add something that's an addition to the footprint, that is in fact something that should be added to the reassessment. But those other things, upgrades inside the house and everything, are generally not considered part of what you're doing. So that's why some people will say, well, they just got a new kitchen and a new bathroom, and I don't have that. My house was valued at the same amount. Well, 5 years from now, you may have the newer kitchen and the newer bathroom, and they don't, and you'll see the same thing happen at that time. A lot's going on energy, and Senator Hansen has been leading the charge on some very important things on energy and energy prices. The governor has asked Delmarva to refund money, and I am the only legislator in the House or the Senate who was there in 1999 when we did electrical dereg. And I can tell you, you couldn't swing a dead cat in Legislative Hall without hitting somebody who was lobbyist for Delmarva Power. They were promising that if we deregulated this industry, there would be a plentiful supply of competitively priced electricity always available for Delaware. And that is not what happened, unfortunately. Delaware has, we have some smaller plants and some smaller solar fields and things like that. The two bigger plants was Hay Road and Indian River, and Indian River is now closed. Some have argued the legislature needs to stay out of this because Indian River should still be open. We didn't close it. In fact, a couple of years ago, some legislators were talking about doing a bill to close down coal plants. Other states have done it. New Jersey, there's a number of states that have closed down coal plants, and I can give you a whole lot of information about why. But we didn't. We chose not to. They chose it down. They chose to shut it down because it was towards the end of its useful life, and they're very expensive to retool. And when you retool a coal plant, because of the 1990 amendments to the Clean Air Act signed by George Herbert Walker Bush when he was president, you have to upgrade to the latest and greatest technology around coal, which means the best scrubbers, the best filters, the best catalytic converters, anything that is top-notch. And coal right now has gotten more expensive, and it's a bit of a problem. That's also happened to natural gas. Natural gas was really cheap a few years ago. It's gone up in price quite a bit. And so even natural gas plants aren't as competitive as it was thought they would be. There is a bill in that will try to set up a task force to look up at small nuclear modular reactors. In fact, there are none of these in the entire United States right now. Idaho had a plan, it was approved, then it was canceled by Idaho. Utah had a plan, it was approved, it was canceled by Utah. These aren't high regulatory states, right? But those are facts. I have been on a nuclear submarine. I think nuclear power can be safe, and when I was younger, and some of you might be about my age, so you probably remember hearing nuclear would be too cheap to meter, right? that is what we heard nonstop. That's turned out not to be the case. There is a new nuclear plant that just started up this last year. I think it's going to be fully functional at some point this year. I think it's in 4 units. And I know the first unit started some point last year. I think it's at least half running now. It's in Georgia. It was 5 years overdue and $15 billion over budget. So, those things are hard. Now, Georgia is a right-to-work state. So it turns out a lot of the work was done by people who shouldn't have been doing it, and a lot of stuff had to be redone. Concrete had to be repoured. There's a lot of stuff that was just, plumbing and you name it, that was down in Georgia. And actually, they did have some union workers come from other states to redo the work that was done in that Georgia plant that is now functioning. It's going to produce energy for a long time. And over time, it's going to be a good deal for the people in that area. I have one more story to tell about coal. Ontario, Canada. Actually, 2. The first one was in Delaware. When I was first elected in 1990, we had 2 of the 10 dirtiest coal plants in the United States of America, Hay Road and Indian River. And they were getting ready to need to be retooled when George Herbert Walker Bush signed that bill that required them to be cleaned up. And Indian River went to then Governor Carper in '94, I think it was, to ask if he could request a waiver of the new rules. And Carper said no. And they said, well, then we're gonna leave Delaware. And he said, don't let the door hit you in the rear end. And they ended up cleaning it up. And it went from one of the 10 dirtiest, I think it was second dirtiest, and Hay Road was 9th dirtiest at the time, in the country, to one of the cleaner coal plants. But in the mid-90s, before that project was done and while it was running, we have a staffer who has retired, but he's come back on part-time to do special projects for us. His name is Dick Carter. He lived in Millsboro. He had a pharmacist friend in Millsboro who had a pharmacist friend in Dover. The pharmacist who lived in who had his pharmacy in Millsboro, right in the shadow of the Indian River power plant, used as much, distributed as much asthma medicine in 1 week as the guy in Dover did in 1 year. That's the impact of coal plants on your health, on your kids, on the environment. And you don't see it as easy. It's not very evident. The other one I want to tell you about is Ontario, Canada. It's now, God, it's close to, it's more than 15 years ago. They made a decision they were going to stop using coal. They had the biggest coal plant in North America just outside of Toronto. And it took them 8 years before they burned the last ton of coal in Ontario. Other provinces still had it. They increased nuclear a little bit. They increased green energy a lot. They increased hydro energy a little bit. They made that a little bit more efficient. And they increased efficiency a whole lot. Those are the things they did. Well, what the result was, the first year they burned no coal in Ontario, they did an analysis of their healthcare bills, because healthcare is province-wide in Ontario. In all of Canada, it's done at the province level. And what's interesting is they extrapolated based on what the trend was in the United States and what the trends were in the provinces next to them. And what they found was a very good correlation between the lower healthcare costs. In fact, the healthcare costs were extrapolated to be about $3 billion with a B, $3 billion lower in Ontario than they would have been had they kept burning coal at the same rate they were burning. $3 billion. That doesn't count environmental impact. That doesn't count what acid rain does to roads and bridges in your car and your house and to the habitat around. That's a major impact. There were companies in Michigan and New York and on this side of the Ontario border that were trying to recruit companies to come over and some left Canada. But actually, here we are 15 years later. Toronto, Ontario is still one of the fastest growing cities in North America, but it is so much cleaner. And they had 54 smog days in Toronto. The year they made the decision, they had 0. The first year they burned no coal. Now, they had a few smog days a few years ago when they had all those fires. We had smog days when they had those fires. We keep burning fossil fuels, we're gonna have a whole lot more of those. And we're seeing those around the country and around the world. So we've got to get serious about this energy thing. And the most important thing we can do is diversify. Nuclear should be part of it. Solar, wind, geothermal, hydrogen. We're going to have some hydrogen money coming to Delaware as a result of that. And that's a huge thing because you know what the waste product of hydrogen is? Water. It's water. No particulates. No oxides of nitrogen, no oxides of sulfur, that's your acid rain components. It's a real big deal. And it's something that, by the way, if solar or wind, and this is in the energy plan, if solar or wind, if we're generating a lot of solar in the spring, when we're not using air conditioning as much, or in the fall, when we're not, and there's not a draw on the grid, you can convert that energy into a lake or the ocean and make it do electrolysis of water to create hydrogen and oxygen, which is it's an energy intensive process, but you're using it with essentially free energy because it's excess at that time of day. The other thing they'll do is they'll use nuclear. Nuclear, you can run that around the clock, whether you need it or not, and you can run it when you don't need it, again, to do electrolysis of water and create really big banks of hydrogen. The other thing that they're really looking at now is increased energy storage, batteries. I visited a battery plant, it's 3 years ago now, when I was in China. They're making batteries that are really incredible. And that battery technology is improving quite rapidly. A couple of problems is they take a lot of lithium, and lithium is not readily available around the world, and right now it's available in some countries that aren't going through some really good, one of them is Ukraine. Unfortunately, Russia has some, China has some. We don't have a lot. We have some, but not a lot. But these are things that we have to worry about. The other thing about the small modular reactors, they take a type of uranium that is almost universally sourced from Russia. So we would have to start now to build the plants and the mines and everything, and the processing infrastructure and everything. It's not legitimate to believe it would be available in this country until about 2035. So we have sources of uranium we get for nuclear bombs, the other nuclear reactors like what's across the river in Salem and everything. But the small modular reactors are designed with a slightly different engineering, and we would basically have to create that as a country, and it's going to take time to scale that up. So that, I think, is a reasonable option. But there's some barriers to that too, just like every other thing. So that's what I have on energy. You probably have some questions. Do you have any questions for me? Yes.
Just a comment on natural gas. This country is trying to export natural gas to the rest of the world. What's limiting is the export facilities. You have to turn it into a liquid for it to be possible. Once those things are built, I believe our natural gas prices are going to reach the world prices.
It's already going up.
It's going to be a lot higher than it is now.
There's an increase in exporting already, and that's the cause of one of the causes of the natural gas prices.
Well, one of the sources of natural gas that we haven't exploited as well as we can is things like landfills and swamps. And there are some pilot programs, and they're actually getting some pretty good results in those. Now they're going to be small scale. They can do bigger than a neighborhood, but smaller. Maybe a town like Newark could be handled off of one of those. But it'd have to be a big landfill or a large swampy area. But those are things that are part of the mix. And I think really we have to try to keep as many tools in the box as possible. I'm more than happy to see coal go away. I just think there's just too many problems with it. Yes, sir.
I have a follow-up question about this diversification, because I was at one of Mike Smith's constituent coffees the other week when he was addressing the energy issue, and he seemed to be asserting that the idea of diversifying that the Democrats in Dover have been pursuing is misguided somehow, that it doesn't make sense to put eggs in multiple baskets until there's quote-unquote enough infrastructure. I didn't quite understand what his point was, and I wonder what your perspective is. Maybe you've heard him say this before, some of the Republicans say this.
So one of the reasons they didn't put a natural gas plant in Indian River was they have a large infrastructure construction, because you can't just convert coal to natural gas. You have to. There's a lot of the infrastructure of the actual plant, but you also have to build a line to it. That's an infrastructure project. It's many millions of dollars, and those things you need to monitor, because if there's a gas leak, you could have some real problems. So you don't want a cheap one. You don't want the cheapest bidder. You want something that's going to be safe, and we can build that safe. I mean, there's no question the engineering exists to do gas lines in a very safe manner. But I'm a big believer that, and we heard it at some of the energy hearings that Senator Hansen had down there, that there was acknowledgement that we probably need to diversify more, including from the industry. I'm kind of concerned about the lack of energy developed in or around Delaware, like offshore. You know, I mean, we need those projects to be part of the mix. And to the extent that you can, when you looked at the hydrogen hub part of the energy bill, the infrastructure bill that passed Congress and was signed by President Biden, there were 4 or 5 sources of hydrogen. And then there were multiple ways that hydrogen can back up any system, because hydrogen can run, you know, some of the most efficient energy production. So for a unit of hydrogen to generate that, I mean, that's a really big deal to be able to get energy.
Contains the most BTUs of energy of any source we know other than nuclear.
Yeah.
By the way, Ontario, this is just so everyone knows, I spent 24 years in the electric utility industry on a global basis, building those nuclear plants that Dave's talking about. Coal plants, hydro plants. The last big project I worked on was in China, the Three Gorges hydro station, the largest hydro station ever constructed. Ontario Hydro is no longer Ontario Hydro. 50%, more than 50% comes from nuclear. That's how they were able to get their energy costs down so low. Their second source is hydro. Then it's natural gas. Delaware, 87% and climbing is where we get our energy to make electricity. Most utilities use natural gas as peaker plants, which come on like right now. This is a peak energy time. Everybody's turning their lights on, cooking dinner. Restaurants have crowds. Everybody is using a lot of energy. Same thing in the morning. Those are peak plants. Delaware is unfortunate. We're in the Eastern Interconnect, or what's known as the what do they call it? The JPM grid. We do not have enough generation.
PJM.
Sorry. Yeah, PJM. But we don't have enough production. We cannot produce enough energy in the grid that we share with New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware, and Virginia to cover the energy needs. That's why Delmarva Power pays a fine, because they can't get enough green energy, which is supposed to be 20% now, they'll go to 30% in a few years. It's actually cheaper for them not to contract. If they had contracted, our energy bills would be another 20% higher right now.
Well, what's
This is
interesting
all
about
in
that?
it's all in the Delmarva reports that you can find online. I'm happy to share the links to people. I've been doing it with a couple of the political folks on both sides the last 2 weeks. But we rely far too much on natural gas in this region, and we do not have enough other plants. And shutting down the coal plant, the only reason they shut it down, it's more costly to continue to run it. But they should, because they could get a waiver to run for 5 to 10 years. The last nuclear plant built was Seabrook, New Hampshire. Originally it was going to be 2 nuclear facilities. There was so much outrage from Massachusetts, surrounding states within the 100-mile radius, that they ended up tangling in court forever. By the time they were done, it bankrupted 5 utilities in the New England region. The cost to build the 1 reactor that went online was 4 times that of what 2 reactors would have been. And the reason nuclear power is so expensive in the US is because each one is a one of one. Every single plant is an engineered one of one. They don't use building blocks. What Dave's talking about with the small plants, that's the next evolution. Well, that's where I work. I work for that company. It's called Framatome, FCI Nuclear Framatome. Every single plant is identical. There's a big one and a little one. How many megawatts do you need? You need X number big, X number little, and they use littles for peakers. And every single one of them, I can walk in and control them. They are identical. Every part is identical. They have to X-ray magnaflux every single piece of a plant, so they have all the files, and that's where the money goes. And they're starting to build them. Right now, the licensing has been approved for about 10 of the Framatome plants in the US, and they're just waiting to get construction going on. Some of them have already been being done, but there were about 25 nuclear plants that when this whole energy thing went back, deregulation, they were converted. Some were converted to coal, some were shut down and just mothballed, but we lost an opportunity. And the good news is the new plants will actually be more efficient, and they will be so cheap that you literally won't have to meter them. But natural gas, to your point, we have a lot of it. We just can't get it anywhere. We're the largest producer of natural gas in the world right now, and this state runs on 87% of it. We need more of it, and we just can't get it. And you can't buy energy except from the adjoining grids. So I disagree that the wind Offshore wind, I think, is a terrible idea. Everybody else is shutting it down because they're just too expensive to maintain once they're out there. I think we're better off doing small solar farms on hills and not agricultural land, and I think we better start building nuclear right now because it'll take less time to do that than it will to get the hydrogen facilities online.
You gotta go to Copenhagen or something, see what.
I've been to all those places.
Well,
I
yeah,
traveled
they're-
the globe. I got over 2 million
You know,
airline miles
and
working in the industry.
nobody believes it should be the only source of energy. But it's a really good, especially with solar, because solar is, you're gonna get that in the day, and the wind actually blows a little bit more at night than it does during the day. And so, you have a mix that actually helps each other when you have that. And, the first one in the US was off of Block Island. Block Island became a tourist attraction. You get T-shirts that have the windmills on. It was not a place everybody wanted to avoid. It was a real attraction. It was an economic driver. So even though they were paying more for the energy that those were, because they were the earliest ones, they were smallest. They were like 25 cents a kilowatt hour or something. So it was very high compared to what you get now. And what's caused the rates to go up was, the interest rates going. I mean, when they were bidding on the ones off of Massachusetts, off of New York, off of New Jersey, and off of Maryland, they were bidding based on, the interest rates right now are 2% that we can get or something. The business interest rates were really almost dirt cheap. And in a matter of months, they went to 7%, and that just changed the whole economics of that source of energy. It's getting a little bit better now, and the numbers look better on the books. I think it's a very nice mix, and it's a good way to try to do. Also, they're finding in the North Sea that the towers that go down into the land under the water, and then sometimes it's 40 meters, sometimes it's 80 meters down. Those things have actually become habitat for fish. There's some really interesting things that have happened. Initially, the fishermen were against it and everything, and now they have out there some of the best relationships between the fishermen in the North Sea and the industry. They also have a regular source of jobs for people who maintain wind turbines require regular maintenance. And it's something that I got to go out to one of their maintenance platforms. It's in the middle of a wind turbine field of maybe 80 to 100 wind turbines. And, the guys go out there and they're out there for 8 or 10 days, and then they come back and there's another group that goes out. So they're out there for the equivalent of full time for 3 weeks, but they're out there in one time pretty much around the ship, because it takes you over an hour to get to that platform at 40 miles an hour in a boat, and my stomach can't always take a boat ride like that, but and the guys live out there. They have a chef, they have bunks and everything, they have a rec area, and there's always 2 platforms, one that has the men and women who work, and one that is basically the step-down unit where all the energy comes to, and then it goes in one set of cables from there to the shore. It's a really interesting way they've developed it over the years. They're kind of on the cutting edge, and those wind turbines are getting bigger, they're getting more efficient, and they last a long time.
So solar energy, we have a lot of flat land in Lower Delaware. How many solar farms do we have down there?
I don't know. I do know that some of the municipal electric co-ops have solar. Newark has a solar farm. I don't know where it is. I don't think it's in Newark. Is it in Newark?
It's actually, the one that's gonna go in is on the old DuPont estate just down by Corner Catch. There's a massive one going in there.
So Newark has a power plant. It's gas. I don't know where that is. It's not in Delaware. They have a windmill down at the UAB in Sussex, the maritime campus. And then they have, so natural gas, wind, and they have solar. What's interesting is, so I have most of Newark in my Senate district. I got no phone calls, no emails from people living in Newark. There was stability in the coldest part, because Newark actually gets energy from around here, but the way the books work out, when the price goes up, the energy that the plants that they have interests in, if the price goes up, they get more. So basically Newark's an energy company that runs a city. And about 70 million of their $120 million budget is paid for by electric, by the utilities that they run. And so they had stability, and part of it was because they had a variety of energy sources in their mix. And when their contracts run out, they have contracts also for excess energy, and those are probably going to go up, but it's only a portion of the energy, and they're hoping that there are more diverse types of energy that are available when the contracts run out, because it's a big deal. But PJM is the worst of the regional interconnects for getting a new energy source online. They just are the biggest barrier, and they're the problem. They're really a big, huge part of the problem. They look at it as a business where they're trying to maximize profit for their shareholders, and they are doing that by minimizing their commitment to the customers of the various utilities that have to run within the PJM network. And there's going to be some things that are changing over the course of the next few years. It's not at all sustainable. Also, I was on Monday, last Monday, a Zoom with the State Legislative Leaders Forum. As a legislative leader, I could be involved with groups of Senate presidents and House Majority leaders and other leaders around the country. And this Zoom, they were going over what are the big issues in your state, and I of course mentioned energy. Oklahoma and Texas. Electric prices are the biggest injury. These are two states with almost no regulations. They're fossil fuel states. They're sitting on it and everything. Texas has the worst grid in the country, by the way, and they've spent all this extra money. There are people who had $10,000 electric bills for 2 weeks in 2021. $10,000, because that's the way the market runs. And some of them couldn't afford it, and some of them, their electric turned off anyway, and some of them also had burst water pipes, and they had to fight with insurance companies to get that stuff fixed. It's a zoo down there, and they, we have it bad, and we're working on it to fix it. But they've had it for 4 years, and they still haven't fixed it, and their grid is awful. Their grid is the worst thing in the country. In Texas, Texas is separate, and they tie in a little bit with Oklahoma, but those two states are also dealing with electric rates. And when I looked at the numbers, I'm glad I live in Delaware, but I still wish we didn't have this bounce that we had this year after 3 straight relatively mild winters and no major problems like this. But this can't continue. And by the way, I got solar on my house last July. And this is another thing I want to illustrate to you about Delmarva Power. Paul Bobnak, who lives in the city of Newark, got solar on his house the year before I did. The day the contractor got done, Newark came out, tied him into their system. Newark looks at a person's solar as part of their energy. That's that much less energy they have to generate. And that's that much more energy they can sell if they're getting more than they need. So that's their attitude towards it. And it helps their customers. They look at everybody who's in Newark as a shareholder, and they're part of the whole system. Mine was done. My contractor was my wife's brother. He's been in this business he was the first person certified in solar, but our neighborhood didn't allow solar panels on the roof. And once the law changed, we were allowed to, he said, yeah, we're interested in it, but by then he was doing mostly business interest solar. And then when he got a little extra time last year, he said, let's put solar on the house. I put in Civic Association, or Maintenance Association approved it. They built it, and it was more than a month before Delmarva Power would let us tie in to the system. We couldn't use it ourselves, and it wouldn't go into the system because there's an inverter connection that has to go in. It took them more than a month. It took Newark 1 day. that's offensive to me. You know, they don't look at you as a partner, as a shareholder or anything. They look at you as a customer who, if they can exploit you, they're gonna do it. And it's a shame. That attitude has to change. One of the things we did when we did electrical dereg was Delmar was responsible for the lines.
Transmission and distribution.
Yeah, transmission and distribution, and they're allowed a share, a guaranteed rate of return. In Texas, if they had done that, a consumer group looked at that, because that's the way it is in you get your cost plus a rate of return. And in Texas, they would be about $20 billion ahead over the last 4 years. But and they would have a good grid, because the rate of return would have been based on the infrastructure improvements that were done. That didn't happen, and so, you know, I don't want you to be happy you're in Delaware. I want you to be really happy you're not in Texas, but let's be happy if we get this fixed, and so we don't have to go through another episode of this in future winters. And, you know, I can't wait until Senator Hansen's bills come to the floor, because I'm going to remind everybody that I was here. If you want to blame me, I voted for electrical dereg. Please throw tomatoes, whatever you want, because it's on me. I did vote for it.
It was a
Roger
national
Roy's bill. Harris McDowell, Roger Roy, fairly conservative person. Harris McDowell, one of the most liberal people in the entire General Assembly. They were the two lead sponsors of that bill in 1999, and there were some good reasons to do it. You know, but it hasn't worked out. We have not had a private sector with deregulation be able to deliver plentiful, competitively priced electric, and that's a shame. You know, there's no good reason for that.
Got a question for you. You mentioned about your home association. I live in a maintenance court, right? One of the bylaws is no solar.
Oh, that's overturned.
That's been usurped now.
Yeah.
by the
So
legislation.
anybody,
Yeah, the only places are if you live in a historically, if you have historic zoning, it cannot be on the actual structure. Like our office building is an 1800s, early 1800s building. It could be ground based. But any other type of home, they couldn't put it on your, you probably could if you own it. You don't have a historic designation on your office building. But you could put it on that if you're an individual.
But even historic, like for instance, the Mitchell's Farm is historic.
Yep.
They have a field there. They have a solar field. It's not on a structure. But, you know, it's a historic as a farm. I don't know how many structures on it are historic.
It covers their milking parlor and such, and their chillers. But the one thing, just, and this, Dave, I would love you to work on this, because we're the only state where solar, if you put it on a residential, you don't get to recoup all of your energy you produce. They only buy up to, I can't remember the exact number, but it's like 10% past what you do, and the rest of it they just get as a windfall. But the guys that are selling you the solar, they're getting the supplemental energy credits, the SECs. So the guys coming around will sell you, this is only gonna cost you X, and they'll pay back in 5 to 7 years. But for 20 years, they own your extra production of electricity, and they sell that off to Delmarva and the others.
And some of those contracts did have some fine print that really messed up some people who had some of those.
Yeah, but like for you, and that's why I won't have them on my house until I can pay my service fees. The meter charge every month, you're still gonna pay that. I bet you still get your bill.
Yeah, yes.
And that's still on there. Other states, you can zero out your bill completely and actually have them pay you.
Mine was not designed to be 100% for me. It was designed to cover
Like the
a
heavy
little
use.
over, maybe about 2/3 of the course of the year. So there might be some months where I'm free and some months where I'm, paying some. I did have a $300 bill when it was free, which surprised me, because the highest bill I had ever had before was like 400 and something. So
But you're probably using natural gas for heat.
I don't use natural gas.
No, you're on electric?
No, I have a heat pump.
Wow. Okay.
Yes, sir.
One concept seems to be really interesting. France passed a law that solar panels need to be installed in all commercial parking lots. And if you think about it, there's a lot of available in space where it could be done, plus when you park, it protects your car.
Yeah, they have that down at Del Tech in Terry campus in Dover. And there's a lot of solar on the Christian Mall, by the way, but none of the parking lots. But there's some interesting things that are done. This might be in Denmark too, where they have trails, and the trails, the paved part of the trail actually is a solar panel array. And they have like, they've been working with different things, but there's only been pilots so far, but they've been using like, it's not a paint, but it's a clear thing that has sand crystals in it, so that you could ride a bike on it and it won't be slippery during rain. And these are generating a lot of energy. It's not going to be enough but you can have it like along a road, and street lights, if there's energy storage, can be used at night with the solar that's generated on the bike paths and pedestrian walkway during the day. So there's some really interesting things that they're doing on areas that are already paved or already, within the right of way. A lot of other countries are doing it. You've got areas in 95 and stuff where you have concrete on the median, or rocks or something like that. Well, you can put solar arrays on those things too. But you have to weigh the costs of the cabling and lines and stuff to get there. So if there's already an interconnect that's in that area, it can kind of make sense. If there's not, you don't want to have to go hundreds of yards to the nearest connection in order to make it work.
Any last questions for Senator Sokola before we move on?
I would hope that Delmarva is getting the cheapest deal they can on electricity from renewable sources. So why am I receiving offers from 2 or 3 different companies saying if I sign up for my electricity supply from them, I will get the cheapest rate? Why isn't Delmarva sorting this out?
Delmarva claims they are, but marketing people often can tell a really good story that has some fine print in there, or an asterisk or something, that you need to read to recognize that it costs more. The other thing, like Newark, it looks like their price per kilowatt hour is much more expensive than Delmarva Power. It is more expensive, but they don't separate out the delivery and distribution charges. That's all in their whole rate. So, it might be a shade more, but remember they're running a city off of it too. So, they're not only maintaining their power infrastructure, they're plowing the roads and taking up the leaves and providing police officers, the other stuff that the city of Newark does. So, it's a really nice story. I've got to know Tom Coleman really well since he's been the city manager, and he knows this stuff inside out. He's a great person to talk to about what options they've had and what they've taken and what they think their challenges are moving forward.
Thank you, Dave, as always.
Thank you.
One more quick one.
Sure.
Are we going to, Mark, are you, as part of the land use report, are you going to address some of the Yorkland updates, or do you have any?
We are, and I'll ask you if you were at the meeting.
Yeah, I was.
On that too.
And are you planning to leave, Senator? Because I just wonder if there's a group of.
I don't do land use.
Yes, you don't do land use.
Yeah, because it's not state issue.
No, but Yorkland, because of the Auburn Valley Master Plan, is DENREC and a state issue.
DENREC, yeah.
So there are, even though I don't live in Yorkland, I'm in Hockessin, but and Mark had a great conversation with me a couple weeks ago. Thank you for that, Mark. And implored me to educate myself independently about what's going on there. And in doing that, I have continued to have some serious concerns about the way that DENREC specifically has been handling that zone. So I just wanted to ask maybe if you'd be open to me emailing you to follow up about some of that. Okay, thank you. It's on your website, I assume?
Yes, Senator Dave.
Senator Dave, you got my last business card. I got a whole bunch of them.
Thank you so much. I appreciate
So
it.
Senator Dave at AOL or what's
No, live. It's a Hotmail exchange.
Yep.
But, so.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, land use. McDonald's, 5709 Limestone, they have not filed yet. This is at the intersection of Limestone and Paper Mill Roads. You weren't here for that one, were you? So they're going to be putting that in the spur road. Looks like they're going to continue forward and give us some design feedback. The former Wells Fargo Bank at 7270. It's still listed for sale, 2.7, 6,000 square foot building. They did not do any other filing, so there's no tenants even proposed for it, or what we think will happen, Wachovia is gonna end up selling it out of Carlsbad, California, and it'll probably be raised, and they'll go with a new plan for redevelopment on the site. But purely speculative, it's showing under contract, but there's no information. The HeartNet building, right across the street, where it's HeartNet and HeartNet Law, at 7301, listed for sale, 1.085 million, 5,480 square foot, two-story office building. Was under contract, is off contract, it is now available again. The one thing we did see in February, and this shows up because the county's always late posting things, February 6th, they have asked for a zoning certification review to show permissible future uses. And that's for multiple businesses in the existing building the way it is. They said they would all be in individual suites and offices in there. And it looks like they were asking about, could we do beauty salons? I always joke, this is what we always seem to get in Hocus in the first blood. Beauty salons, nail salons, no dry cleaners. Other personal care services such as depilatory salons and a tattoo parlor. Land use responded on the 14th that the current CR zoning would allow such uses. So they do have commercial regional, which would allow all of those. And, without having to do any redevelopment, they could do that as individual offices within it. The Walgreens down at 2012 Brackenville is still listed for sale, 5.7. They have a long-term lease that goes till February of 29. So it's just a matter of selling off the real estate to free up cash so they can continue to do other things in the Walgreens world, which who knows what that is right now because everyone's closing stores in unprofitable locations. But they will lease it back, and it goes up 12.5% at the end of the 3 and 5 year renewal. Coffee Run Condo, 614 Loveville, the proposed new building, that has been sold.
Where is that?
Right next to the empty field of Coffee Run. That empty field, that was
Okay.
the other building that was never built.
And how is that in relationship to the new tower they're talking about?
The tower is on the other side by the church.
On the
And that's
opposite side of the
behind,
church?
that's behind the church, behind the old cemetery at the edge of the property, the cell tower. So we'll go on that in a minute too, because we've got that coming up. So Coffee Run is sold, it's about half an acre. They're gonna put a 5-story maximum building, which will match the others, 45 luxury condos. And it must look similar to the original building, so it fits into the site. But that has been sold, I don't know who it is, I actually met the broker who did the deal, and he said he couldn't tell me anything at this point, but he does know that it has to match, and it will be basically, for all intents and purposes, will like what's there. The county has issued permits for Quarry Walk, that's going up on Yorkland Road, just right after, is it Bloomington Road? Old Bloomington Road, I was getting new old. And they've also begun putting in the sewer connection, and Delmarva Power dropped in 3-phase, service the other day, and the connection point and a distribution transformer there. So they are ready to move forward, once they have now to the power, they'll be able to run that down and hook it up to the pumping station. That's a pressure main that goes all the way from Yorkland at the 2 Point Brewing lot, all the way up the hill here to Hockessin.
How many houses are going in there?
That one is, I don't have it on here anymore. I wanted to say it's all townhomes by NVR Ryan, which is the high-end Ryan side. 57?
I thought it was 57 or 58.
I think it's 57 or 58, but they're all townhomes around the loop. You just see the green pipes
It's
around.
only about 100 more cars about it, right?
Yeah, give or take, yeah, which is nothing compared to the NVF traffic, which was 2,500.
Nothing compared to what's happening on Valley Road.
Yeah, that's, yeah, that won't even blip, it doesn't even warrant a traffic, impact study, which is the highest, or a, traffic advisory, which, the BIA and the I can't remember the other one, the low end one, we haven't had one, we've always got TIAs, but it doesn't even blip for, DelDOT to do that. 701 Valley Road, that's the brick ranch with a 3-car garage in front of the former Mozzarellas property. Still waiting to see what Mr. Setting's gonna do. He still says he's gonna go with the office building that looks like a barn that he showed us way back years ago. 520 Valley Road, no update on that. That's the lot that, the folks that had the Goddard School in Lantana. At one point, we're looking to move and build a little bit bigger building. They haven't done that, so they've got it, for sale, but it's not on an active listing anymore. I couldn't find any active listings, but it's gone through a couple iterations of different things, but it would have to be by right. which means daycare. And I did sit on the new county executives transition team for land use. For Civic Umbrellas, I was one of only 2 that were asked to join that illustrious panel of developers and land use attorneys. It was a lot of fun. It actually was. They were pretty decent. And that was the one thing I kept hammering, that I'm tired of by right plan defaulting to a for-profit daycare. If it's for schools, fine, that's what by right education schools are, but it shouldn't default to a zoning that lets them put a for-profit daycare, because at some point, it's gonna turn into a white elephant, and then they're gonna say, oh, pity us, because we built this big building and now we don't have kids anymore to go to it. So that got in the report, and we'll continue to talk to Mr. Henry about that when we get up face to face. 6042, 6060 Limestone, that's the major redevelopment with out rezoning. That's George Beers across the way, which 4% is low income, 80 units, 3 stories, parking lot. Everything's looking good.
What
It's
is
just
low
the
income?
low income is, I think it was 65% of the median income of the area. So if it's $100,000, it's $65,000. That's the best way I can do that.
For each unit?
You'd have to, right, for each unit would have to qualify that you can't make more than 65. I think it might even be per person if it's a married couple. But it'd have to go back, because it does have some
And that was
stipulation.
143 units?
That is,
You said 80.
that's 80
80
units, yep,
Oh,
that's
80.
80. Yep, 3-story, and they'll have a front desk and everything. Most of them probably will not have vehicles. The parking lot was sized as such that it will do it, but.
Wait, they're not gonna have vehicles?
Well, they'll have vehicles, but everybody's not gonna be driving. They're gonna have mass transit and shuttle services too.
They're gonna have all of that on Valley Road?
It's in one spot. It's between the veterinary clinic and the brick office building.
It's not on
No,
Valley,
no,
it's
no,
on
limestone.
On Limestone Road?
Yeah, but I think that was,
So
no,
that's gonna
limestone.
be between the veterinary and the,
Yeah, if you keep going over, there's a big empty field. Look at the brick building where the AT&T store still is. Is it still there? Anybody remember? I don't go to AT&T, so I don't know. But it's if you're heading towards Hockessin, on the left, you'll see the brick building. There's a dentist in there, Dr. Kaz, and I think the AT&T store. It's that next field, and it's a deep field. But they're only, again, we got like 63% open space out of that as well, and protected on the back. So that one should be, that one's been done for a while, but it'll be all basically just below the median income for the area. Across the way, the former Exxon station in Richardson's nursery, I stand corrected, Richardson's opened up.
yeah,
I said to Peg, I said, well, they may not open this year, and I saw them piling stuff up at the front, thinking they were hauling it away, and they had some trailers, who knew? So one more season of Richardson's, but I'm done saying for whenever. The EPA has been going crazy over there, they've got their signs up now with the finalization of the perk capture going on and taking care of that, but the former gas station building, the white building, will still become a Starbucks as far as we know. And the rest of it on the Richardson site will be a strip center with probably a nail salon, a hair salon, and a pizza shop, and who knows what. So we don't know. But that will have full access in all directions, and that plan was filed back in May. Like I said, EPA and Denver kept competing over who was gonna get bragging rights. EPA had a bigger stick and they won, so they have the sign on there saying that they've got the perk and residual remediation going well. Valley Grove on Valley Road, the former Camerano Mushroom House and property, they're at the final turnover. They completed their inspection of open space and stormwater, and the only thing right now that's just a last minute thing is Artesian Water wants to put a small well in the back of their common area back in the field. So there's gonna be like a Terramat roadway, which is basically they put stabilizing mat, let the grass grow back in, so it looks like a normal lawn. But it'll support one of their well trucks to get in there, so that they can do maintenance on it once they put the well in. And it's gonna be a small shed, not like the big brick buildings we see around where the artesian wells pumps heads are at. This is just another well to help in the water situation in the area. So that will be going on, and the last 6 lots, from what we've heard from the developer, they're going to basically dry them in, get the doors, the windows, the siding, and that'll all be done, so it'll be a shell, and they'll have the interior done, but they won't have everything finished. They'll let the homeowners, future homeowners, pick what they want. So they're, rather than build them on speculation and be locked into it, they're gonna basically complete the outsides and then finish the insides to order, so to speak, for lack of a better term.
Is somebody watching the aquifer, the artesian aquifer?
Yeah, that
Make
is,
sure
that's,
there's enough water in there.
there is actually, yeah,
We're not all going to sink into it.
we've actually seen an improvement because of all of this testing. What, earlier, and I go back to when Jack, oh gosh, he's passed away so long ago, lived up in Yorkland, and he was helping us on the committee, but we actually worked with Artesian, and they were pumping more water out of the Hocassin aquifers into PA, and it was causing problems where they were overdrawing it. So one of the things they did, and that was back, Dan's here with the fire company, a lot of it, we had so much impervious cover around here, that one of the things we've all tried to do as a community is to get less impervious. So the fire hall has one of the state-of-the-art rain gardens out here. If you walk out, there's that little strip in the center, got the little bridge. All the groundwater goes into that basic rain garden and goes down in and infiltrates back into the ground. And there's also holding tanks for more water that then they use for the irrigation around here, and then whatever isn't used gets again back into the ground. So instead of just running off and going into the streams, we're actually infiltrating more water now than we were 20 years ago. So that's helped stabilize the aquifer, and Artesian also stopped shipping our really good water to other people. It does go up through the rest of Delaware, but there's plenty of water, and you're right, the issue was if they overdrew it, they could collapse the limestone aquifers, and we'd have sinkholes everywhere. So it's doing better, and having the contamination, I hate to say it out loud, but it was probably a blessing in disguise, because it slowed everything down to let them figure out how to get that perk out of there and allow the aquifers to recover. So, all in all, we have good water. We have some of the best water in the state. Harmony at Hocassin, right across the road from Tom. I went by the other day. It actually looks pretty nice.
I like to waste paper. So
Yeah, they moved from outside to inside. They'll probably be doing the final grading and landscaping as the weather warms up.
That's gonna be a major problem to me up in that area.
Uh-huh.
And the traffic, I mean, Valley Road is the, not being, you can't put a light there at that intersection, we understand that. They need a better plan, they need the light to be up at the next little shopping center, because all those cars are gonna come out that come to visit. Because that's what, 350 people? That's a lot of people there, and people, gonna have 100 units that are going to be independent living. So all those people are gonna have to come back out, down to Old Wilmington Road, Old Wilmington to Valley, or to Yorkland. And already it takes 2 stops. If you have over 4 cars, you get across the
Petitioning
It's
for
crazy.
traffic light on the road.
Yeah, there is,
It must drive you crazy living on it.
there is a petition for
road is that?
traffic.
Old
light.
Wilmington.
The traffic light up, you know where the shopping center is just beyond Wilmington, Pennsylvania?
Wellington West.
That would be
It's not that
good
bad
for the
right now.
shopping center, good for the people.
Rush hour.
And great for those
Yeah.
coming out of.
And that's where a TIA,
Traffic's just bad in Delaware, period.
somebody should know this, I used to talk about this all the time. TIA and the T something, the lower one, but they do, DelDOT will put together, they'll put the little hoses out there, and they'll also have a camera, and what they do is they count all the turning actions based on time of day and the traffic counts. And they do it even beyond those intersections, so they know how many are actually going in and out and how many are pass-throughs. And that's oh yeah, TIS. TIS is the highest level, traffic impact study, and the TIA is the traffic impact analysis. That's the lower level one. There we are, thank you, anyway, fine. But that's what they'll do, and from that, if there's enough traffic, it will warrant a traffic light. To give you an idea, we fought as a community to get the one at Lantana on Limestone Road at the Lantana entrance. And the former Secretary of State, Secretary of DelDOT, Mrs. Cohen, said no, it was needed. And we dug up an old plan from 12 years before when she was a traffic engineer, where she actually wrote, in 10 to 12 years, this intersection will need signalization. And DelDOT, when they widened that Limestone Road going up by my neighborhood and put the truck lane in, they pre-plumbed the entire intersection for traffic signal. So it was an easy sell, and the best one was the Simeon family paid for it. It didn't cost us a dime as taxpayers. So that's what they'll have to do, is they'll do a traffic impact study or a traffic impact analysis.
Do they do that automatically or does it?
They do it upon, if there's usually it's triggered by accidents. And you'd be surprised at how few accidents we actually have in this area based on those issues. We have a lot of close calls, but
Very iffy, a lot of.
Dan knows all the accidents he goes through pretty much, as the fire company.
I mean, it should be done maybe a month or two after Omni.
Oh, no, they do it during peak traffic. They can't do it in the off-season. School has to be open, because that's the highest traffic counts. It'd be when the buses and people are shuttling their kids back and forth. So all of these have to be done during the highest peak traffic. And they have to measure throughout the day. It's a 24-hour measurement. They don't just take, oh, let's do the one at 10 o'clock at night and nobody's there. It has to be done, and it's usually done for 30 days. And the last time we got the report from Delta, I FOIA'd them through the Information Act, and we had all of them for every signalized intersection. And by code, every 3 years, they have to do another count on all the signals. So the signals that are up here, they have to even look at that to see if there needs to be timing or changes to that. So they will look at that. Tom knows they've done it. It's been requested through DelDOT. Our legislators are on it. It's just a matter of them putting it together and putting the systems out there to count it.
Even without Harmony Road hasn't been open, traffic backs up on the Government Road, 8, 10 cars.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
yes. That's a dangerous turning left.
I mean, yeah, and the trucks roaring up and down the pike.
That's why UPS doesn't make left turns. UPS trucks always make a right-hand turn. It's the safest turn you can make. They lay their routes out for delivery so that they make as few left-hand turns as possible every day. They figured it out decades ago that less accidents means less money and more reliable, everything else. So I always do that. If it's a lot of traffic, I turn right, go up, come back the other way. It's really easy. Okay, Lantana Square, nothing new there. The stormwater stuff still rolling along. Go back to Hookessin Station. They are going to begin construction this year, and they're going to do it in phases for all of them. They'll be doing townhomes, single family, all at the same time. And the historic house that Pete's been involved with will remain as a separate lot, carved out there, but it will be part of the community and managed as such. And they did go from 147 down to 143 because it was being reconfigured in the single family section and so forth. And the county, we hear, is going to be starting to run the sewer line at the back of the properties that they have been at the 60-foot easement for 50 years and haven't done anything. So they now realize they need to also connect that because capacity in this area has not changed in probably 80 years. Cell towers, if you haven't noticed, they've got the fake limbs on. It became a pine tree, which is interesting because it wasn't supposed to be a pine tree. The one by the Coffee Run Church, or what is it, not the Journey, the other one. That one there up by Trinity was supposed to be the pine tree, so it's probably going to still be the pine tree. Now we have 2 pine trees going in. They've got all the antennas mounted, then they put the fake limbs on. It's really high. It's higher than yours, Dan. And we've got a little cell tower envy right now going on, but they will be able to allow other cell companies on there as they go. It does have backup generator, just like the one here at the fire hall, which might as well have because without it, it's useless. And no idea on when they're going to go live and turn it on, but at this point, they've run the lines. I think it's just a matter of tying in to the hard copper lines or fiber lines, probably fiber now, down at the base, and it'll probably be up sometime the end of this month, early into April. The next one is the one at Trinity Church. They've already started the site prep up there. I went by the other day and saw their equipment in the back. You can just barely see it over the crest of the hill. So they started doing the excavation, and I'm sure we're going to see the foundations get poured and the tower go up, and it'll be another one of those monopoles, and then the antennas and the brackets and everything, the wires on the side, and then the guys have to put those nice little fake pine tree branches on there. And then the last one will be out by our office in Yorkland, which will be up on the hill from the former Garrett Snuff Mills, T missing, crossing Dew Point and Garrison's Bike Shop, and that one's gonna look like a fake old farm windmill. So they'll have that on there with all the antennas around it. Who knows, maybe they'll put the antennas in the array of the windmill, I don't know. I've never seen one of those before, so it'll be interesting to see how they pull that one off. And that one's still just waiting for the county's historic review board to sign off on it. I think they probably approved it, they just haven't posted their meeting minutes, so we don't know. But we'll go from there. They're all Verizon, but everybody else will be able to go on those. 1510 paper mill, we talked about this a month or so ago. This is a small rezoning from suburban S to suburban transition to put 32 age-restricted townhomes while retaining one existing two-story historic home and garage, which they're gonna flip the driveway, turn that around so it'll go into the neighborhood, and that's off of Paper Mill Road. So if you head out of Hocassin, make a right on Paper Mill, and you go down, forget the accountant's office, it's the next house on the left that you see. That would be the upper end of the small development, and then it'll be 32 homes, counting that scattered in there on the left side. And there'll only be one entrance and exit to it a little bit further down once the road has finished the merge lanes. It was filed, we haven't seen anything go forward, but it will continue on, but it will be of age restricted or 55 plus. And just to point about, I ran new, and I'm more than happy to talk to you, have this with me tomorrow night, so I won't be able to make it, so you can have a cheat sheet. The one from, that I was talking about, that is in Senator Dave's district, is Corner Catch. It's one of the former DuPont mansions, and not mansions, but properties out there where they have lots and lots of land, and they're building at the very back on one of their large fields, a cluster of a very large solar array, and it's called the DuPont Solar PV Development, and they just applied for that in this year, and that's a suburban zoning. It's about 3,200 feet off Paper Mill Road, but I've attached all the projects, updated them, that are in Janet's district, in District 3, going all the way back to 21, all the way up to 25, and these are all ones that are in various states of either being worked on or have been installed or something else. There's a good 2 pages of those and nothing else. So that is the land use report, and I just have to say, I love Dave Zicola, because he's very approachable, but some of the stuff on energy, I have to tell you, 24 years in the industry, I literally traveled over 2 million miles, air miles, all over the globe, building these things, and installing them and working them. And nobody's building new wind turbines, because they're too expensive to operate, and the maintenance is too much more when it's offshore. If you build them, you put them on land, because they're easier to get to. If you have to go out in a boat, yes, they make nice little habitats for the artificial reefs of the critters in the sea, but they are super expensive when one catches on fire, and they catch on fire a lot more than people know. And when the turbine blades shatter because of high winds and the brakes fail, and that happens a lot more than people know, the ecological impact is horrendous. It's shards and shards of fiberglass, which cannot be reused for anything else, because it has what they call long glass fiber inside the fiberglass turbines. And they are not usable once you've done that, to make that special fiberglass for those massive blades. And it is super expensive, and they end up in landfills. Cut up in little pieces, about 100 feet long, out of 300, and they bury them. So, and they never ever hit their useful life. And he talked about Ontario Hydro, or Ontario Power. That's the last on their list, is the renewables. It is the smallest portion of all their energy that they get produced, because it's the most expensive and least efficient. And batteries, I hate to say it, but look up all the countries that make lithium. We have a big lithium mine in the West, but it's in protected national forest lands. So that's gonna take some legislative action to get in there. But most of it comes from nations that don't like us. And it's extremely messy. So I say to my environment, and I'm a big environmentalist. People know I'm fiscally conservative, socially squishy. Big environmentalist. But when you look at how they mine boron, copper, zinc, lithium, nickel, these things are, and lithium mines are some of the dirtiest because of the way it's needed. And it's just tons and tons of dirt to get pounds of lithium. It is so destructive. That's why you don't see it a lot here. And they don't last that long. Anyone have rechargeable batteries? They're good for about 10 years, and you gotta get new battery packs. It's the same technology. Lithium is what's in all the battery packs and all the tools. So that's my thing. I'm big for anything, like natural gas would be great, but we have way too much of it as a reliance. We don't have enough of anything else. And our grid is 90% of all energy that's used here is imported into Delaware. And that's right from PJM and Eastern Interconnect and Delmarva. And I'm gonna say this, I know it's gonna upset you. Where they said green energy was not a factor in the prices, Delmarva Power has a 4-page report where they actually cite that green energy mandates are actually hurting them and causing an increase in the rates. Because they're having to pay extra to be able to not have it. If they don't have it, they're paying a penalty. And that's the way it was set up, and it's because of legislative action. Now for fun stuff that you can do something about. I'm gonna give you this. Everyone's got your reassessment, you figured out how much your taxes are gonna be. Nobody knows what they're gonna be. I'm gonna give you a website that's pretty cool. You can look it up by your neighborhood, or you can look it up by your individual house, and it will tell you where you are and what your increase was. And I looked through some neighbors, my neighborhood, and it's www.ncctaxestimator.com. This is not associated with the county, it's not associated with the state, it's not with anyone with Tyler. Some really good, smart attorneys came up, and tax attorneys came up with this way to figure out, and it has every property in Newcastle County. You can put in just your address, don't put in street drive, just put in, like, I live at Ice Pond Trail. 3 Ice Pond, and it will come up on the pull down below you. Click it, and it will show you where you are. If you wanna see your neighborhood, it's best to look it up by neighborhood. If you live in a developed neighborhood, just put in your neighborhood name, and then you can scroll and see everybody. You'll see who went up and who went down. And I'm really kind of amazed that a lot of people didn't contest their reassessment. When we look through neighborhoods, it's like less than 10% of most neighborhoods were contesting. I did mine because they were off by 220,000. I was higher. And by contesting it, mine ended up actually a little bit lower than other people that didn't. So it's almost worth it. You have till the end of the month to do that, to the file.
Did you read that website again?
NCC, like for Newcastle County,
Yeah.
just NCC, tax, T-A-X, estimator, no plural. Estimator, ESTIMATOR.com.
And that's,
Okay.
that's not the school tax.
Nope, well, it shows all your it's your total reassessment valuation, shows what you were, shows what your first one was, and if you contested, it shows what you ended up with.
I just want, before I put in my address, I want to know my address.
No millage rate, that's what Janet was gonna, I asked Janet today, and I chatted with her real quick. Well, you're changing
They
what it
found
was,
out that I
then
have a
see what your
200-year-old
reassessment
barn.
changes. They actually are.
They're like, this isn't on our map.
And the nice part is, if you look up your neighborhood, it shows like my neighborhood,
It's only been there
$91 million in taxes before, and now we're like $129 million.
It's bigger than the house. It took
So,
like an hour
remember how they
to
said we weren't gonna pay more?
pace it off.
That tells you right there, we did. And I had a great argument with a former state senator. Uncle Walton, was he state rep or state senator? On social media, he deleted half his posts. So he was like, he posts, I post, he posts, I post. And then all of a sudden I've got 3 in a row. And he goes, oh. But anyway, long and short was fun because he said it doesn't go up. Yes, it does. It does go up. It never stays the same after reassessment except for 1 year. And July 1st, we'll know what it is once the millage rate comes out. So if we were paying $100 per thousand before, we might be paying 87 cents now. But remember, the average was 511% increase. But it'll show your individual increase, your other neighbors. So the good news is a lot of you are gonna, the ones that are in red, by the way, are bad. I love the color coding. That's my favorite thing. Always color code bad stuff in red so no one has any question, and good stuff in green. So if yours is in green, congratulations. Your taxes probably aren't gonna go up that much. All right.
But the other question, if we go back to Valley Road, that's almost 402 homes going in there.
At the Valley Road, at the Hokeston Station, yep.
Yep, that stretch.
Yep.
On that piece, on that narrow piece of road, and already it's chaotic at times.
Yep.
So what are they proposing to put in a
There's
middle lane for a turn lane? I mean,
Well, there is a middle lane now. What they're gonna do is they're going to do a roundabout, or I call it a traffic circle, at the entrance, which will be across from Valley Road and the entrance to Hokeston Station at the main entrance, which is where McGrellis's driveway is now. And that will be a traffic calming to allow the traffic to go slow. These guys with the fire engines can go straight across because they'll have a little raised platform, but they won't have to slow down.
Not 400.
No, it's not 400 homes either.
no, but I thought it was 203 proposed, they're not going in, 56 on the, 56, and 143 at McGrillis.
I'll put the numbers back in on the
Yeah.
next report.
147 to
143, it's 143 total. Townhomes, twins, and singles at the Valley, Hocassin Station.
Okay, and then, and how then you include them plus the 56 that are the, well, I guess 56 that are the townhouses on the right and on the, what's the name?
Valley Road.
That are already there.
Yeah, that's an addition, that's a separate
That's an
development.
addition.
Yeah.
That's right, it's a separate
Yeah,
development.
that's 56 homes.
And then you talked about 203 proposed units being put in. They haven't done anything.
203?
So I just,
No,
I just thought, oh my
that's
God.
all of them. That's everything for Valley Road, there's nothing else going on Valley Road.
Oh, no.
Nope.
We'll never get to the supermarket.
Got the pathway.
Yeah, like,
Okay. Pete, you think you can be brief?
I will be extremely
Awesome.
fast.
Then you get to go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks, Mark. We have a
I
dis-
actually thought we'd be out here by 8 o'clock, I shouldn't have let Dave go so long. My apologies.
Trish seemed to be a little upset about the length of that. Yeah. We have a display that Darlene installed for us over at the Hocassin Library to celebrate Irish History Month. So please go over and check that out. I'm on my way over to take some photos to put up on our social media. So that'll be there for everybody to share. All of our updates are available here for you, and they'll also be posted on our website, so you can check them out if you did not get a sheet. There's some on the table up there by the entrance also. Kind of the biggest thing we're looking to do this month coming up is starting the project at the old tavern. So Tweed's Tavern, we got a $34,000 grant to have that repair work done. So that's going to be starting soon. We just have to have Wesley Sessa, the owner of 18th Century Restoration, come out and look at the project and lie to us about the total, and then you go from there. The historic repairs always start off with a low ball estimate and balloon very quickly. So we're trying to give them an upper limit that we can't exceed. So we'll try to stay within that $34,000. And then I think the only other thing we're working on right now is the Juneteenth project. So Darlene is in charge of that. She's coming along. She's had one meeting already with the volunteers, and I think she has a second volunteer meeting set up. I don't know exactly the day or the time.
24th.
24th? Okay. So, yes. If you have any questions, I think her email is on the update sheet.
Yeah, I don't even look at the emails. I mean,
Call me.
the phone.
Pick up the phone.
Call me. Call me. It's 302-239-2061. I live by myself. Big house. Call me. Nobody else is there.
on the old tavern, I was out walking, must have been a month or so ago, and I saw that the door was open to it. Do you not lock that door?
We had an issue with that, and we corrected that right away.
There
We
were
got an
places in there
email.
that could be dangerous, or it would be a great habitat, a great place.
Yes. We were using it that same day, and somebody had left it unlocked for whatever reason.
I didn't see a way to lock it, I just shut it.
Yeah, we got an email right away about that. That's a problem because it is one of the historic doors on the building, and so it has a latch from the inside. It's not the same type. Yeah, we usually go through the back entrance, but
I just don't like.
thank you for letting us know.
If you want to become members.
Look at the members, are you?
Yes, we always looking for members. Yeah.
Pete, I've been talking with Representative Smith about CRF grants again this year. They go in for May, and I did talk about your two items that you have on here, which is the HVAC system and the tree removal, because those are things that have been done before for other nonprofit exempt groups. Matter of fact, they did a really big one for a community where they had a ton of ash trees that were dead and blown down by those windstorms. And also for the Tweeds Tavern and upgrades to the meeting area. So if you can put together some rough numbers, they don't have to be precise, and I will tell you the thing I've learned is If you think it's gonna be, let's say it's gonna be 50,000, make it 58,000. Go 8% to 10% higher. That way, it's gonna cover the difference between because the grant gets in, and it can take 6 months to a year to get it. So that way, it'll cover for any changes in the cost. And they're fine with that because it's really just an estimate for the grants and aid and the community reinvestment funds.
Great, thank you so much, Mark.
Work on those and email me, just call them what they are, like, Lamborn Library HVAC system and the tree, and then do the same for like Tweaks Tavern for facility repairs. If it's a roof repair or whatever, it's just put what it is. We don't ever get a guarantee because it goes through the whole group that does bond and JFC, but and we don't know what it's going to be with the new governor because in the past they've been, I think one year they did over 90 million, the year before that they did 140 million. There's a lot of money with that now they're up to 7.4 billion in surplus right now. So we always joke we'd rather have them give our money back to us and spend it in our community than go off and do something new that we won't be able to pay for in the future.
Great, thanks, Mark.
Please get those in. And that also can go to HBA. You guys, are you a 501c4 or C?
Not for,
You're not but you're an exempt.
yeah.
Okay, so if there's something you guys need or would like to be doing, put something in, give me an email. I'm coordinating with Mike for the greater Hocassin area because we're the 501c3. It has to go to a 501c3 for administration. I'm sure we all the hard work. I don't know what pennies. That's why I'm on the treasurer.
We'll address it in a meeting
Yep.
tomorrow.
And it's something you guys need extra. Fire companies are always putting things in, so any non-profit exempt, I always say, make your wish list because we can only ask, and if they say no, no big deal, we do it next year. Okay. Speaking of the HBA, I see Peg and Bill are both here.
Our meeting tomorrow night is going to be at the Lamborn Memorial Library on Valley Road and Lancaster Pike. Thank you to both Darlene and Pete for making your facility available. We have Jim Jordan from the Brandywine Red Clay Alliance, who will be our guest speaker. The Red Clay cleanup is scheduled for Saturday, March 29th. There will be posters and banners and Charles Shattuck from Wild Birds Unlimited will probably have a bunch of them out in the next week or so. But Jim Jordan from the Brandywine Red Clay Alliance will be our guest speaker.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I'll give you this before you leave, Bill, so you'll have it. All right. Anything else? Any questions? Yes. Yes, talk about Yorkland.
Yorkland. Okay, so hi everyone. I'm Isaac. I live in Valley View, so I'm off of Sharpless. And Yorkland Road is just on the other side of the woods from us, so like half a mile or less even. And my wife and I like to use that area of Center for Creative Arts, DuPont we love, Garrison's, I see your hat over there, your shirt over there, and of course the Auburn Valley State Park. So once I started to hear about this Yorkland issue, my ears perked up. I had no idea. I just, like many of us, driven by there a million times and wondered what's going on. So the update is that the attention on the proposed developments there has really been spiking the past couple months after a dormant stretch. And this was precipitated by this December meeting by one of the developers that no one was happy with. And so there was a follow-up meeting led by just concerned community members that was at the Hocassin Library a couple weeks ago. And it was that very rainy Wednesday night, and 70 people still showed up and packed the room. So this is people's interest is really peaked right now, myself included. And that was not with any of the developers or agencies. That was just a community forum. And I think probably the reason they didn't invite you, Mark, is because the speakers were there. Carlos Alejandro, who I know you have some.
Like GHADA.
There's some beef there. I'm not going to go there. What I want to say is that I really pride myself on I have a PhD in sociology, so I'm a researcher. I pride myself on finding out information and making my own independent judgment. And so, I had a great conversation with Mark. Thank you again for that helpful conversation. I reached out to some of those concerned community members. They have a committee there of like a core committee of 10 people and then a mailing list. And then I've been reading the Auburn Valley Master Plan, which is the development plan for the area, and some of the proposals myself. And what has helped me make most sense, I'll be brief about this. What has helped me make most sense about this are sort of three facts. I mean, one is that area, like much of Newcastle County, most of Newcastle County used to be under Newcastle County purview as far as land use and development goes. And in 2008, there was initial proposed development after NVF filed bankruptcy and that area was starting to be redeveloped. And through the channels of Newcastle County government, that development was stopped. But between 2008, and it was a good thing because the next year was the Great Recession, so it probably would have stopped anyway. But by 2011, the state and DNREC took over the development of that zone for a lot of reasons, just because it touched on environmental preservation, it touched on flood control issues in the aquifer, it touched on some DELDOT issues. And so by 2011, there was the Auburn Valley Master Plan created. How many of you have heard about that, the Auburn Valley Master Plan? Yeah, so that's sort of the governing vision for the area. And I like the 2011 Master Plan. That's my second point. I like the 2011 Master Plan. It was really sensitive to historic preservation, environmental preservation. There were some proposed trails that I would have liked myself. It was a mix of commercial, residential, historic, and parks land. But this is the second thing that what I've noticed, and I think partly why the community is upset, is that things have really strayed from that original 2011 vision. The first thing was that DNREC started adding some parcels that weren't in that original plan without really consulting the community. One of those was especially questionable, that was Quarry Rock, which is quite a distance from where the NVF site was, and was added. The justification was that it was a brownfield site. And then we had the clear cutting of those 10 acres of trees there, which is bizarre. 20 acres? Yeah. So it just strikes me as a strange thing for for DNREC to facilitate the clear cutting of 20 acres of trees. And then there hasn't been evidence, to my knowledge, Mark, maybe you can shed light on this, there hasn't been evidence that there was remediation done on the site.
There actually was. There was palladium and arsenic found. I actually talked with Senator Sokola, Senator Sturgeon, and Representative Krista Griffith, who were all out there doing Facebook postings where they were standing around the chimney that they were trying to preserve. There was just a basic square brick chimney about 3 foot by 3 foot. That was the incinerator that was used to dispose of the hazardous waste from the 1800s. And there were also buried hides from tanning, Mad Hatter, stuff ring a bell, that were on the site. When you dig it up, they use arsenic to use for tanning. So I actually mentioned, I said, Laura, you might want to put that brick back. It's probably got palladium and arsenic on it from that. And they did take that whole site and they took the soil off, it was hauled off, and incinerated to clean it. So they did clean it up, and there was a DNREC report from their engineers as well as third party, because they had an issue in the past where the Milltown group, with I think it was Bill Dunn, was complaining about the old Hercules golf course and how they didn't prove that there was arsenic up there, but anybody golf, every green was treated with arsenic because it makes it look green to the human eye. It doesn't do anything to kill the plant, but it's really bad for us. And every golf course in the country used arsenic for years and years. They don't do it anymore, but they did the same thing there, and they asked them to participate in dual testing.
This is where your institutional knowledge is very helpful, Mark, because DNREC has not been able to provide its own report about that.
Yeah, it's actually with the whole NVF package, because that's why they tied it in. And part of the reason they tied it in, and again, Carlos won't remember this because he wasn't at any of the other meetings early on, the other 18 meetings that took place. The fact
that's not true, Mark. I don't want to. Please,
I know
refrain from making the personal comments.
Yeah, but he wasn't in all of them, and he needs to remove his web crap he's got up too, or I'm going to get my attorney.
Let's just focus on
this. What the issue was, that they tied it in, because the developers were looking at the other lands up on the hill, the better green space.
Yes.
And that was going to be somewhere around 35 to 4,200 homes. All the national developers wanted that. That's why Denrec stepped in. They took over from the county because of the cleanup costs, which the county couldn't absorb, some $28, $32 million, and to take care of that brownfield site. And as a part of that, the developers were gonna be restricted as to how much land they could redevelop into homes. And they gave them sites down near the roadway because it would be less expensive to have homes there and less damaging to the rest of the plan for Auburn State Park. And all of the Marshall family, NBF property, and the Lickles, with all the lands they put together, they ended up creating Auburn State Park, which is, I can't remember the total acres, but it's just around 300, give or take, that was part of the Auburn State Park and extended over. So that's the reason, but there's only 3 residential sites. The newest one, which I think was this group's meeting, was the one building that Bud Thomas has the rights to, which is across the railroad tracks. It's the one that burned 4 years ago. Thank you, Dan, for that jogging. I only thought it was 3. 4 years ago, that has been, the rights have been given to Chatham Bay. And Chatham Bay, for those that haven't looked it up, the Freebury family's involved with that. And there's all a bunch of Freeburys, we know that, but that's the group that has the right for the redevelopment. Now, whether they bought it from Thomas, I don't know. I haven't seen the land use change. It might be like every developer where they have a right to do it if they get their plan approved, but they have a right of first refusal or something. I don't know. I haven't dealt in it because I didn't even know that was on the block. It was supposed to just be, they were gonna repurpose that building, gut it to the walls, keep the beams, and then put in basically apartments and offices and shops. Shops on the first floor, offices next up, and the rest was gonna be apartments. And they were gonna use the building, but the arsonist made sure that didn't happen because now it's structurally unsound. So it's gotta come down.
Yeah. And so just to wrap up what I was saying, the Chatham Bay development, this one is the one that really just tipped things over the edge for that community because it was a 6-story luxury condo building that, in Mark's word, does not meet the GHADA standards. It was not low profile. It did not fit the community character. It was large, flashy, and
a pool on the roof.
Rooftop pool. I saw the picture. I'm like, where the hell
it's-
did this come from?
It's pretty bizarre.
Bizarre.
I mean, and I think that's what got everybody riled up.
Yeah.
My neighborhood is split between Hocassin and York, and I'm off Yorkland Road.
Oh, really?
So our neighborhood is all into what's going on.
Yeah. So that's just emblematic of my third point, which is that it seems like the situation now is that Denrec has lost a lot of that trust in the area, and we're going to see what this new
Because
Denrec
the plans
administration.
have changed so many times, and I think that's really what people are riled up about.
Mhm.
It's, you went from having maybe some good community ideas, the amphitheater and all these different things, and now that's all just thrown out.
Mhm.
And now we're looking at a 6-story ridiculous, I call it an apartment complex. I get, they can call it condos, whatever they want. It's apartments in a building that people are gonna pay $500,000 for a 1-bedroom apartment.
Jeez.
Yeah. You raised the aquifer too, so that's one consideration as well. That it sounds like there was a lot of important work to conserve that aquifer and recharge it. And that has also sort of disappeared slowly from the picture, how the stewardship of that aquifer relates to all the new proposed developments. And that is not something that Denrec has been following up with as well. So you're going to be hearing more about this. I would love just to be able to continue conversations about that in this space going forward. Keep everyone informed. We appreciate your updates, Mark. And I'm going to be, because I am worked up about this too. And I want to see what's best for that area and for kids to grow up in this area. We moved out here for that open space. We like the trees. We like having some small businesses in the area. So I'll be continuing to be able to sort of be a conduit, providing some updates as well.
Would you be willing to share your email address?
Oh yeah, sure. My first name is Isaac. That's Isaac. My last name is Jabola. That is JAB as in boy, OLA @gmail.com.
Thank you.
So yes, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to be in touch.
No dot between first and last name, just the whole thing.
No dot.
All right, thank you, Isaac, and yes, please continue to be the conduit, because I don't think Carlos is gonna return any emails I send. Yeah, and again, this is all news to everybody, because that was not the original plan, and I think one of the things is with Denver, we used to have a project manager, he was the deputy Denrec director, and he's left. And since then, things have kind of gone stagnant. We lost the issue of the Wilmington Western was gonna have a Y or a turntable. They actually bought the turntable. It was parked out there for years on siding cars behind the big dirt berm, and then Denrec sold it off. They never went to Wilmington Western. They never came up with the money to put in this concrete base. So now they'll revert to a Y to turn the engines around, what they'll probably do. And same with the amphitheater, which looked nice, that just kind of didn't materialize. So a lot of it is in question, but if you go, you can still go to the Denrec site, you can see the original Auburn master plan. But I think that's something we need to get, is we have a new Denrec, Secretary of Denrec, we need to figure out, are they gonna put somebody back in charge of this? Because when there's somebody in charge, it gets done. If there's nobody in charge, it just flounders, everyone's like, coat of arms of that's the county and the state. Your job, so, all right. Anything else for the good of the order? Anybody got anything else coming up other than the things we discussed? I want to welcome Tina back. I know Tina's had some health problems, but she has been diligently emailing us and keeping on top of things. And I just have to tell a funny story. There was a meeting we had last fall, and off they went at the end of the night, and Tina had everything in her folder. I think it was in that notebook like that. And we were outside. Pete and I were like, what are these papers out here? And then, here he comes down the road, and he says, I think I lost, Tina put the book up on the, I don't know, was it Tina or did he do it? Okay, just wanna make sure, it was his fault. He put the book up on the car and then drove off home. And it looked like it snowed up here on Lancaster Pike, so we're out there picking them up safely, mind you, considering traffic's behind us. So Tina, I wanted to give you a zippered binder that you can use to put all your papers in, and that way when you're done, it's got file folders in places, you can zip it shut. So the next time he puts your book on top, it'll just be all in one nice little package. So thank you, and good to have you back, and you'll never do that again, right? Until the weather gets warm. All right, thanks everybody. We will see you on April 21st. Meeting's adjourned.